5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Freddie.
G'day, Russ. How are you, mate?
It's very good to see you. You're clearly having a pretty good time wherever you are because your complexion's improved.
It's funny, the sun in Greece here, you, despite my appearance, you do stand out. And the first thing you notice is for how bright it is, my God, it lacks that bite of Australia. It feels like a warm hug, really, doesn't it?
Isn't it fascinating? And that is the right word to use. It lacks that bite. Yeah. So in our summer and the sun comes out and geez, it does genuinely beat you up, right?
100%. It's vicious.
It's true.
You can see how
it's true, as opposed to where you are.
It informs. I think you can very easily see how different cultures, are informed by how quickly they have to get inside.
I like it. That's very good. Well done. Hey, Freddie. So we've got we've got an unusual podcast today for AdMission in that we've had guests before. I'm not sure we've had a guest like this though. So we've got Joe Aston, of course. Joe Aston, the incredible writer. I mean, I reckon he's Truman Capote. Is actually what I reckon he is anyway. So, Freddie, maybe over to you.
Hugely excited to have Joe Aston, who is undeniably, we should say, one of, if not Australia's most famous business commentator. So for over a decade, Joe wrote at the Australian Financial Review, penning the infamous column Rear Window. And in 2024, he released a damning book about Qantas's behaviour during the pandemic and afterward named The Chairman's Lounge, the inside story of how Qantas sold us out. He has since left the AFR to found Rampart News, where he and his colleagues, in his words, cover the stories that matter in the corporate world with the same no-holds-barred approach we have come to expect.
Hey, Joe, it's so good to see you.
Russell with one L.
Thanks for coming.
The great man.
You know, Russell with one L. My father told me to spell it with one L from day dot, and because he said it looks better like that. Right? So we're visual people, us, Outcross.
Fair enough.
And of course, that's Freddie with two Ds and an IE on there as well. So Freddie is online. Joe, great to see you in the studio. We really appreciate you coming in. But obviously, we want to talk about your book. We want to talk about Rampart as well. And I'm just really keen just to chat sort of brands and strategy and communication and just, pick your brain as well. And I've got a little exercise I thought you might enjoy as well. It's a sort of bit of a classic brand strategy exercise that, well, we'll see how we go, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm afraid. I hate being put on the spot, but it's good for me.
No, I want to pick your substantial brain and see where we finish up.
You may discover how insubstantial it is, though, when I'm not prepared.
Let's see. So, well, let's do some simple stuff. I genuinely am very keen to know about your media consumption. Because, obviously you are a provider of media and people consume you, but who do you consume?
Well, my first stop, I'm a creature of habit, as many of us are. My first stop is always the AFR.
Yeah.
I to this day think it's the best newspaper in Australia, and it's sort of my principal source, and I check that. Not only do I read its emails as they come in, I check the website or the app multiple times a day.
Yes.
And then I read the Australian, the Sydney Morning Herald, the Age, Daily Telegraph. As expected.
Yes. But not as expected. Yeah.
As is common for a print journalist. And then I try and consume a lot of foreign media and the FT, again, bearing in mind I write a lot about finance. So the FT, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg.
Beautiful pink broadsheet newspaper.
There's nothing like it.
Isn't it stunning?
Not only such a great experience as a news consumer, but like as someone who's now building a journalism business,
yep.
You're just in awe of the unit economics of that masthead.
Well, tell me more about that.
Well, sort of like 90% of its revenue is from corporates. So, the vast majority of the people who read the FT are not paying for their own subscription. Yeah. And in terms of the prices that it charges, along with the AFR, probably the two most high revenue news publications in the world, which is really extraordinary. And you look at the things you can buy as a news consumer in New York, like you can buy The Atlantic for $79 a year. You know, the Wall Street Journal's cheap, the New York Times is cheap. Now, they all add up if you read 20 of them. I also read Semaphore, which is free, but Puck, which is $100 and something a year, which is a brand new type of newsletter-based business. And, you know, Axios is very good. And you know, there's all these amazing new single person or small team publications popping up on Substack and Beehive. And that's sort of where Rampart is, trying to do that. But it's not really happening in Australia yet. You've got really, really big name journalists in America now cutting out on their own, realising that they don't need them to be under a masthead.
So that they, in effect, are the brand?
Correct.
The journalist is the brand.
And they can plug and play into a distribution platform like Substack very, very inexpensively.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Substack thing, it sort of worries me in a way in the Australian context, because I've tried to become a Substack guy. Yep. And I'm failing. So why would I be failing?
Hard. It's much harder here because it's 1/10 of the audience size. But it's also the audience isn't quite there yet. No, like there isn't the critical mass of Australians on Substack looking for content. Like Gideon Haigh and Peter Lawler are doing very well with their cricket Substack, which is absolutely brilliant. It's something I read religiously. But yeah, look, it's much harder. You've got 1/10 of the potential audience to pay you. But again, not only is the audience not there yet, neither is the advertising. So Substack has no advertising. I've gone with a different platform where I can have advertising. Yep. But you guys are in the media agency, we're sort of in the advertising side of the world. The media agencies are not there yet in Australia either. So you say to them, let's sell ads. Why don't you put ads for your clients into the newsletter space? And they sort of look at you blankly and go, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm sure.
But if you go to Puck or Semaphore or any of these Axios, any of these cutting edge newsletters in America, Meta, Amazon, Bank of America, all the biggest brands in the United States are advertising on a daily basis on those platforms.
Freddie, are you a Puck guy?
Not a Puck guy, but it's fascinating to hear you talk about this, Joe, because it seems like to me, coming out of the AFR, you had the opportunity you might be one of the few people in Australia, if not the only journalist in Australia, that could have gone out and just made the Joe Aston newsletter, but instead you decided to build a brand instead. In many ways, sort of a much larger endeavour. So, like, what was the bet you were making? What was attractive to Rampart as opposed to the Joe Aston Roundup?
Well, at the moment, Rampart is just really me and one other guy, Ivor Rees, who's a former Chanticleer columnist at the AFR, and also some really great lifestyle content from Alexandra Carlton. It's very small, so it really is, not to at the moment, it still sort of is very much the Joe Aston show, but obviously my ambitions by creating a brand that isn't me is to build something where there's other journalists and other voices, which I think is a more sustainable and interesting and diverse offering for an audience. I don't really want to build a cult around myself. I don't like the feeling of that, and I don't like the sort of sustainability of it. To be completely honest about it, what happens on the week that I want to take it off and spend it with my family, and all of a sudden subscribers aren't getting anything from me, and they're banging the table going, I'm paying a lot of money from this. Where is this guy? Oh. And so there's all of those considerations to be made. Yeah, it doesn't really make that much difference to the actual practicalities of establishing the business, though. I mean, coming up with a name, you still have a brand. You'd have to create a look and feel anyway. It's using the same technology platform. So, but yeah, look, as you can see, that was quite an intentional decision.
Oh yeah, well, I want to come back to Rampart. Sort of the who, what, why, when, how, etc. AFR. Off the top, it's what you read every day. You believe it's the best paper in Australia. I would absolutely agree with you. Though I think it's undercooked. It feels to me like there's so much more that it could do.
Yeah, well, it's trying to be everything. It has to be a lot of things to a lot of people. And so it's appealing to people who really want the really serious, meaty, macroeconomic conversation about the direction of the country over here, who are really political people. right through across here to the hardcore trading. I want to know what shares are doing, what particular companies are doing on a daily basis, and what's happening in the financial markets. And they're very different audiences, but so it has to appeal across that whole gamut. That's hard. And in the context of being a legacy masthead, you know, you've sort of got to turn the Titanic, and you got to be inside a company like Nine, which, you know, is a company I've loved working for a long time, but it's a big legacy company. Like, there's challenges in that. So,
So do you think that media companies, I don't know, let's say Australian media companies, do you think they're good at actually saying we're a brand? So let's use AFR as the example, that we're a brand, and therefore we can be distributed no matter the platform, no matter the, you know, technology, or do they just find it difficult to go beyond saying we're a newspaper, and yes, we accept we've also got to be distributed via a digital newspaper, but beyond that, it's not us.
I think it's hard to paint everyone in the media sector with the same brush.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them are are better than others. There's no doubt about that, without being cute about it. I think the AFR is the best brand that Nine has. You know, some would argue with me, but it's growing. You know, it becomes more profitable by the year. It's got the kind of audience that advertisers want the most, and it's able, because it has that grown-up, sophisticated, wealthy audience, it's able to talk to its audience like adults. Whereas sometimes you are really not that much. Nine, maybe other media companies that have to be very, very tabloidy. They're sort of chasing, you know, down the drain, and the economics of that are hard. But look, the AFR's. Look, I don't want to crap on about the AFR constantly, but
I'm the one that asked you. I know, I asked you because you know, for me, it is a. Yeah, I know, right? For me, there's an asset there which I just see upside. That's all.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. And to be honest, in the Australian media landscape and in any global media landscape, a legacy brand that has upside at the moment is a rare thing.
Yeah, precisely. Freddie.
I think it's, you know, to give credit where it's due, two things that I'd like to point out that I love. You know, it almost feels childish, but about the AFR, the Tiffany Blue, I think is one of the great brand assets in Australia. And also the fact that they, I know certainly as I got to become more familiar with you as a journalist, the illustrated profiles of each journalist above their columns. I think the AFR probably of all mastheads in Australia.
So that was originally a Wall Street.
Yeah, we just ripped that straight off the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, beautiful, and also the cartoon. The cartoons are outstanding, right? But I agree with Freddie. I agree with you. There's a line. There's a line the Fin Review had. Do you remember I reckon maybe when you started at Fairfax.
The daily habit of successful people. One of the great taglines.
Yeah. The daily habit or the daily bread?
No, the daily habit.
So I've written the daily bread of successful people there because I thought the bread's quite good because bread equals money.
Yeah, well, that would be clever. Yeah. But unfortunately, they weren't that clever, Russell. They should have consulted you.
Well, they might have had they might have had the daily bread, but then decided on habit. Anyway, it's one of the great lines.
Yes, and you know, a great ad campaign or tagline when they try to change it and update it, and then they just give up and they go, let's just go back to it. There's nothing's going to beat that, and that is a good example of that.
One of the things that Freddie and I often talk about is like, well, if it's working, why would you change it?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the only reason is because you consumers cease to see something if it's the same over and over again. It's like, you know how you can edit your own work and the fifth time you don't see the mistakes.
Yes,
isn't that why they update it to recapture your attention?
Well, yes, that would be the excuse,
rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, wrongly, I would suggest. Yeah, because when you have one of the things that you need to have when you are one of the things you need to have. So when you're Mars bar, right? So the best Mars bar line ever is. A Mars a day helps you work, rest and play. So what did we do? We ate one every single day because they told us to.
Yeah. Did you really?
When you were, I'm talking like 1980, probably.
Wow.
Tradies still do, right? You know, so I firmly believe that advertising a line, so a line for we're going to get to Rampart, a line requires you to help the consumer understand the behaviour that you want.
Yes.
Yeah? And if you can have the daily habit of successful people, that is
Well, that achieves both the instruction to the consumer, but also the sense of FOMO. Like, I need this because it tells me who I want to be.
Precisely.
That's the brilliance of it.
Precisely. So look, it's a long time ago that they got rid of it. The other amazing things about great advertising lines, as you've just demonstrated, they're just washing around in your brain there.
Yeah, totally.
It's so interesting, isn't it? It's just somewhere, it gets locked to the back of the head, and you can unlock it so quickly. It's just the value of that I just find really interesting. Freddie?
With that in mind, I've heard you in interviews, Joe, talk actually with quite a bit of reverence and knowledge about the people behind some brilliant campaigns in Australian advertising history. So could I just come out and ask, what's your favourite ad of all time? Or what's one that sticks out to you?
Well, perhaps predictably, the Qantas choir ads from around the 2000 Olympics are very corny, but so effective. And that's another example of a company that has constantly gone away and tried to go, let's come up with something new. The choir thing's boring. And they ultimately just go, this is no good. Let's just go back to the choir.
Right.
And it works. It really works.
I've never been a fan of it. I reckon it makes me, a little unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mind it.
I hate it, but it works on me.
Well, I think maybe that's part of it. There's a certain, I don't know, you got to be careful about nationalism, don't you?
As a rule, now we're really crossing into dangerous territory here in Melbourne. Yes, you do have to be careful of nationalism, but I was also, funnily enough, on this one, I was also a friend of Neil Lawrence, and I loved his feels like home.
Yes.
Campaign that he did there. That was really powerful.
Yeah,
I used to go to the same restaurant in Brentwood as Randy Newman, and I always wanted to introduce myself, but I was always too scared.
Well, you should have.
He looked very grumpy.
Well, I don't know whether he was grumpy. He was a typical. We should explain to Freddie. So Neil Lawrence, there was an agency called Wyburn Lawrence TBWA, and Neil was one of the great ad talents in Australia and died way too prematurely. Yeah. And perhaps most famously was responsible for Kevin 07.
And relevantly came up with Independent Always for The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. Yes.
I didn't know that he came up with that. But see, whenever I've seen Independent Always, it then reminds us of the UK, when the UK launched the newspaper The Independent. Do you remember the line for that?
No, I don't. Please.
Freddie, do you know the line for that? It's
not a clue.
It's from about 1985,
right?
But it's a very famous poster, and as I'm sure you're aware, Joe, in the UK they sort of obsess about posters. Yeah. That's in that world. Landing the poster is more significant than any other sort of comms creative enterprise, and so all it had was the headline, Independent, so the masthead, and then underneath it says, "It is. Are you?" It was unbelievably successful.
I bet. That's super clever.
Yeah, super clever. And of course, the Independent...
Ironically, wasn't particularly independent.
Well, the ownership of it, who was the owners of it?
I don't remember, to be honest. But as in its editorial slant, at least in later years, became very, very progressive.
Well, it's quite interesting, isn't it? I'm sure you would have had the same experience. When you walk around in the UK... so I spent a long time working there, pre-digital age, and so everyone walked around with a newspaper. And it's quite interesting. The newspaper that you walk around with actually is an advertisement
of who you are.
It really is, right? And I walked into an interview with Saatchi & Saatchi in about 1987, and I had The Guardian with me. And, I'd been in London for less than a week, and the first question I got asked was, "Why are you reading The Guardian?" Right? I said something rather lame like, "They print fuck," which... It's sort of what
I don't know. That might have worked at Saatchi & Saatchi.
Well, maybe it worked. Well, no, it didn't work. I didn't get a job. but it's always stuck with me because of this idea that the masthead you carry actually reflects who and what you are in that market, in that sort of, well, what is it? How would you describe that market?
Oh well, it's a saturated media market. I mean, they have so many newspapers. Even today, it's incredible if you think about per capita, the number of different news publications you can consume.
So New York, Freddie, you must be enjoying all the... Freddie is a voracious reader, by the way, Joe.
It was funny hearing you, every masthead that you listed just before, and the price that you can get for them. I'm reading all of them every day. I feel like I've struck absolutely gold. There is not a spare minute aside from when the subway goes underground that I'm not hooked up to just the latest and greatest.
And so, Freddie, when you walk in the streets of New York, are there still the kiosks? And in the kiosk there is an abundance of.
There aren't many.
No, not like it used to be.
No.
No, they're all called newsstands, but I'm yet to see a newspaper in physical form just about anywhere. There's one man at the office that comes around and drops the New York Times, one for the entire office, onto some table in the centre of the building, but there's nothing else.
I'm going to run a theory past you, Joe. See what you think. So, as the digital world becomes more and more corrupted, have you seen in today's newspaper the AI Instagram woman that we
At Wimbledon?
At Wimbledon. So that, of course, it's a fake, as we all know, it's a fake. 20% of Australians have had a scam attempted on them.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, 20%, and so. The very idea that we should trust everything that happens in the digital world, I think that might be, what are they calling it? The enshittification of the internet. So maybe there is I don't even know whether opportunity is the right word, but print might just come back. We had a rumour, in fact, on the radio this morning with a businessman who, in fact, it turned out was being interviewed by an AI bot, unaware. That was what was going on. So surely that means in the end we might get back to interface being face to face and the written word being more important. I might even start writing you letters and using an envelope and sending it to you. I don't know.
I don't think that I don't agree that will happen, but I certainly think that people are. We're really very fast entering a period of time where people are afraid of what's real and what's not.
Yes.
And can't be sure whether to trust information. That's really good if you are a trusted source of information.
Right.
People should flock to you
if
you can be trusted and you live up to that trust. But yeah, being in the journalism business, so everyone's sort of speculating that we'll all be replaced, and my column can be written by a machine.
Yep.
Your radio show, your voice can be reproduced by AI.
Yep.
Yeah, so your radio show can be replaced. I mean, as we know, if people are falling for bots in live conversations, they're getting better.
Yeah.
Or people are getting stupid. But
no, I think the bots are getting better.
No, they definitely are. But anyway, look, let's not get into a deep philosophical argument about AI. But I think we're also going to get better at figuring out what's what. There's always going to be people who get scammed. But in general, people living in society are going to get better and more careful.
Yeah. Unfair question, but if I was scammed and money was taken out of my bank account, is that my fault or the bank's?
Well, that sort of depends on a lot of circumstances. Yeah. There aren't many cases where you. I mean, that is an unfair question. I only was speaking to someone yesterday who had their bank accounts drained and it was their own fault. And their bank still gave them back all the money.
Oh, that's good to hear.
That mostly happens.
I think that's great to hear.
Banks tend to be better corporate citizens in Australia. This is a very broad statement. Of course, there's exceptions and to the rule, but they tend to be better corporate citizens because they can afford to be, and they're still careful after the Royal Commission. Mm-hmm. They're much more careful than airlines or supermarkets, for instance.
Yeah. Well, speaking of airlines, Freddie, why don't we talk about the book?
To all of our listeners, we should absolutely encourage everyone to go and listen to the nitty-gritty of Qantas's behaviour during the pandemic and afterwards. But I guess maybe to frame the conversation, what it felt like there was nothing particularly, I guess, classified as illegal that was going on by Qantas then, but it felt like a real betrayal of, I guess, not just their size, but their position in the hearts and minds of Australia during that period. I guess I'd be curious to hear from you guys was Qantas always as revered as it was prior to the pandemic? How did they become such an icon and a juggernaut prior to their fall?
Okay, well, there's a bit going on there. The first thing I would say, Freddie, is you're not right about that. They were doing illegal things. The first of which was breaching consumer law by selling flights, ghost flights, selling tickets on those flights that they'd actually already cancelled. And the second thing they did was they breached industrial relations law by illegally sacking 1,700 people, baggage handlers, in COVID lockdown because they wanted to stop them from exercising their right to strike at a later point because their EBA was coming up. So they were definitely breaking the law. Mm-hmm. In terms of how did they become loved? Were they loved? We talk about those choir ads and nationalism.
Yep.
That was their commercial strategy to monetize our love of country. They pulled on our heartstrings, made us love being Australian and associate them, the company, with being Australian, in order to charge us ticket prices that were 20% higher than any other airline in the world. For service that over time became inferior to a lot of its competitors. So that's, by the way, good point, good on them. If I'm a shareholder, that's exactly what I want them to do.
Yeah.
But what happens when you as a brand, when you lure consumers into loving you deeply, is that when you betray them, the sense of betrayal is outsized.
Right, yes.
People get really irrationally angry about it.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw.
I think one of the things I get irrational about as well is, their points. They're sort of, it's sort of like,
I know.
Joe, remember when Ansett fell over? And,
I do.
September the 12th, 2001. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not long after that, I went to the creditors meeting that was held at down at the tennis centre or something, I think.
Oh, yeah. What'd you do that for?
Well, I was working on, I had the Diners Club account, and Diners Club was connected to Ansett.
Right.
And so, anyway, I was down there. It was fascinating. There were union representatives who, of course, were very unhappy because they no longer had jobs. Mm-hmm. There were business people there that were very, very unhappy because they no longer had points.
Yes, it's
like ridiculous.
Yep. No, totally. Well, and that collapse was the making of many Melbourne financiers and legal identities. Leon Zweier, Mark Corder, Mark Mentha,
yes.
And the like. So, yeah, look, the points. The hilarious thing is that Australians participate in a currency which is really no better than Dogecoin. If you think about frequent flyer points, in fact, actually, you'd be better off in Dogecoin, because you participate by accumulating these points in the full knowledge that they are being inflated away. The value of them are being inflated away rapidly. But not only are they being inflated away, but the supply of goods that you can use them for is non-existent. So everyone knows you can't actually book flights with frequent flyer points, right. Yet we still obsessively get credit cards to accumulate them, and then we complain that they're worthless.
You're so right, though. So pre-pandemic, the passion that people had for the brand was significant. We go to sort of Kevin Roberts, back to Saatchi & Saatchi. Kevin Roberts, Saatchi & Saatchi, love marks was how they built a business over probably a decade, where it is your job as a company, as a corporate, as a brand, to get people to fall in love with you. Well, obviously for loyalty purposes, but for margin purposes as well. And the exploitation of that is actually the company doing the right thing, that they are doing the right thing, as you say, by the shareholders. Is this something that if they had their time again, would they try and find a way to make it clearer to the Australian public that first and foremost their audience that they treated with primacy was the shareholders?
So, again, a lot going on there. I mean, any business, it's like a rubber band. And marketing's a big part of this. Advertising a big part of this. You want to stretch the rubber band without having it snap back in your face.
Yeah.
And clearly that's what happened at Qantas. Would they have done things differently? That's a question I would love answered.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, I wrote a 120,000 word book about it, but I was not able to speak to Alan Joyce, the main protagonist of this whole thing, or Richard Goyder, his chairman, who was his chairman. And they have, Alan Joyce has not really ever expressed any regrets, and Richard Goyder has expressed very limited, depersonalised regrets. but really taken no deep or meaningful responsibility for what happened. I mean, in Qantas's mitigation, they had been thrust into, the most existential crisis that aviation has ever faced.
Yes.
And they really leaned into that narrative. Of course, what the book explains very clearly is that they were never at risk of going under. They were so comfortable. In fact, they were so comfortable that they wouldn't go under that they decided to say, please don't give us any money to the Morrison government. We don't need a bailout, so that Virgin Australia would collapse, because they knew Virgin Australia did need a bailout. And only after Virgin Australia collapsed did they change their mind and say, actually, we would like money.
Right, okay. Although, just a one to be fair comment maybe. At the time, you don't know that the pandemic's going to finish. You don't know that there will be a day that we're going to start flying again.
Well, that's certainly by the time that. Well, put it this way.
Yeah.
That's not what Alan Joyce was saying.
No. Okay.
Alan Joyce was saying to his shareholders that this is the greatest opportunity we've ever had. Give me $1.5 billion and I will sack so many of my workers that when this is over very soon, because there was already a vaccine under development, we'll be so profitable that we'll print mega dollars. And so shareholders in Australia said, hell yeah, we'll give you money. Yep. And he paid out $1 billion of redundancy. So you say that to me. But that's not what Qantas was saying to us at all.
That's fair. So one of the things, of course, that everyone did, or all of the corporate world did, was use the pandemic as a cost-out opportunity.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And, of course, so look, I think this whole bit that we're talking about now is to be fair. You do have to recognise that, things were pretty full on. And what they did was they exploited it. They took the opportunity to make big change. Yeah. And they just took it a little bit too far. Yeah. And we're talking about maybe not on the margins, but this is where a different leader, or Alan Joyce a bit earlier in his leadership, might have had the judgment to say, we'll push this far, but we won't keep pushing. But to do it all at once, to raise fares to record levels, to use COVID credits that nobody could use. It was just, blow after blow after blow. And there was no sense that Australians had, a limit. And people have a very big limit with Qantas.
Oh, yeah. And it is also true that when we were allowed to get on a plane again, whether it was a domestic flight or an international flight, the experience was...
dreadful. It's not really back to, again, it's not really back to where it was, and it never will be.
Yeah, I haven't flown Qantas internationally, but I've been doing a lot of domestic, and I've got to say it's certainly better than it was.
No doubt about
coming
that.
Off the back.
No,
yeah.
and if you fly domestically in Europe and that's kind of you quickly realise that the things we grumble about with Qantas. Yeah. Are relative to how they used to be. But if you look at relative to how they are globally, it's a very, very good, high-performing domestic network. You can get around Australia so much more easily than trying to get around other countries.
And they're very good at... I've got a niece who lives in Darwin, and it costs her $3,000 to come from Darwin to Melbourne.
That Qantas price gouges on that route because of the lack of competition.
Right.
Yeah, and they do that wherever they can, and any business where there's a lack of competition will do that. But are you a member of the Chairman's Lounge, Russell?
Well, I was about to declare that, Joe. Right. Yes. I am a member of the Chairman's
Because that
Lounge.
Could be why you say things aren't so bad.
No, that's absolutely not. With regard to Qantas, no, I think Qantas
No, as in your experience might have been quite nice compared to others, but there could be a real lack of friction at the boarding and check-in sort of experience that others don't quite... can't quite replicate.
Look, Joe, you and I don't know each other well, but what I can assure you of is that I'm not someone who just spends my time thinking about myself. Right? I have observed what was going on.
Yep.
And did have what would be less than ideal experience on a particular occasion.
Sure.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, it got so bad that even the Chairman's Lounge members were having bad experiences, and that's when you can't come. That's the ones you can't come back from.
Fair enough, Joe.
I wanted to ask you guys now with the position. So, as of, I believe, Roy Morgan reported that as of February of this year, Qantas is still the fourth most distrusted brand in the world. In Australia, sorry, yes. If I were to give you the reins, how do brands go about recovering from scandal? Is it best to sort of front up to it, to talk about it, or do you just get on? How would you go about it?
The first thing I would do is not get in it in the first place. and there's lots of jumping off points that companies like Qantas miss. But also, if you look at the other brands that are around or below Qantas, you're talking about Optus, you're talking about Rio Tinto, you're talking about News Corp, you're talking about the Reserve Bank. You know, not to pick on those companies in particular, but we're talking about, you know, brands that have experienced crisis or are recovering from it. Rio Tinto blew up Juukan Gorge. Theirs is a long road back. You know, that was 5 years ago, and they're still right down there. Qantas collapsed to down in the bottom of the 60 RepTrak or Roy Morgan brands, and they collapsed there in 2011 when they grounded the fleet, when Alan Joyce grounded the fleet, and they just clawed their way back.
Pretty amazing,
over time.
Wasn't it? That 2000. Where were you into 11 when that happened?
I was just in Sydney, but a lot of people were on Derby Day, and
Yes.
and lots of people travel from interstate to go to Derby Day. And as you remember, Julia Gillard, who was Prime Minister at the time, was hosting Choggum in Perth. So, like all of these very important
It was
people were.
unbelievable. It was very un-Australian, Joe, wasn't it?
Well, it turned out to be the right decision, if you ask me. It was ballsy, and what it did was it enabled, it broke the unions who were being particularly militant at the time, without crossing into law breaking. You know, it certainly used a loophole in the law, but it was a dramatic action that then allowed Qantas to keep its labour costs at a reasonable level for the next 10 years. And that's why Qantas became really profitable before COVID, and it was, you know, making good profits. But, that took 5 years or 6 years until it just climbed out of the basement. You know, people don't suddenly go to a brand, okay, I trust you again the next day. It takes a long time.
That's
but
right.
the hilarious thing is that people will come back to Qantas quicker than almost any other brand.
I think that's true. Although I think what is interesting is from an advertising perspective, like what's the next great advertising campaign for Qantas? Because one of the things I'll be tempted to do is to go back to we still call Australia home.
Yeah, but people will throw tomatoes at the screen if they do that now.
Exactly. So precisely. So what do you do? I think it's a really, you know, it's a question which I'm going to take you through a little model in a minute, Joe, which might be a bit of fun. I've got to say your book is unreal. I really enjoyed reading it, and one of the reasons why I enjoyed reading it is because, I mean, you know, you're such a good writer, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously. And the Rear Window and the Fin Review, you know, it is. Yes, people can get in the sort of, you know, crosshairs. Is that the right way to put it? And yet the writing for me always is. Well, I suppose it's what I enjoyed. Yeah. So whilst I may not have enjoyed, well, as you know, there are people that have been in it that I know. And I try and say to them, listen, just enjoy the writing.
How does that go as advice?
Well,
does it go down well?
Because it's been written, right? So, you know, so to enjoy it. Because the writing, Freddie, I mean, the writing is genuinely really good. And yes, you can read a significant book about an airline and enjoy every moment of it. And that, of course, is because of the writing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you actually about your tone and your style, Joe. So having come from a speech writing background, having written for politics and for corporations as well, that transition when you came across to the AFR, was that sort of, you know, if I dare characterise your style, that sort of wry smile, that, you know, that punchline at the end of an absolute pantsing, was that sort of structure ready to go? Were you sitting on that for a while? Like, how did you go about discovering your voice after so many years of what I imagine was, you know, trying to stifle that?
Okay, the punchline post-pantsing. I like it.
Oh, that's so funny. Look, I don't know that it bears the speech writing bears any resemblance really to the really voicey. I would say voicey over ranty, but like voicey, polemic style columnising. I think that was just a job that I did at a certain stage of my life, and then I really didn't have any other skills. Certainly, I didn't have people skills. So I thought I'll be a journalist, which is perfect. And you know, I'd met all of these very dynamic, charismatic type of people who worked in the media, and they all seemed to go out to lunch every other day and get back to the office at 5 o'clock. And I thought that was perfect for me.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that was really what was behind it. And then once I found myself in the seat, I actually started at the AFR. I got a job full-time on the AFR magazine working as a design writer. So I was sort of writing about architects and,
Like it.
and industrial design and interesting products. And,
Watches.
yeah, or the latest Italian toaster or whatever. It was sort of, it was all a bit.
Yeah. Well, you got to. Yeah.
You got to make a crust, right, somewhere.
exactly.
But I was only doing that for about 6 weeks before the deputy editor came over and said, seriously, this is a joke. You've got to do something real. And the editor of Rear Window had done 2 years and wanted to be released to do something else. So they said, why don't you do this? And that was sort of what Rear Window was then. It was just sort of like a hardship posting you had to do. And they'd say, look, do it for 2 years and then we'll let you do a more fun job. And I just started, and it really evolved from there. And I was given this really a lot of discretion to make it whatever I wanted to. And it just simply evolved out of boredom, because it starts off as a gossip column and it's like, there's so-and-so having lunch with so-and-so at Rockpool and little tidbits. And there are still columns like that in all the newspapers, and I'm not trying to talk them down or anything at all. It was just from my point of view, I got bored doing that quite quickly, and I applied myself to turn it more into a commentary, a piece of commentary. And I very gradually, remember this happened over 12 years, was developed the skills, analysis, analytical skills, knowledge, judgment, and contact book to actually have the perspective and the expertise to say something that people wanted to hear.
I mean, in the end, business is about people, right? So, and I think so yes, I buy the chocolate bar at the supermarket, and business isn't really about the chocolate bar; it's about the people that have made the chocolate bar happen.
Yeah, correct.
And then understanding those dynamics, I think, is clearly. Yeah. So one of the things which I've been thinking must be, this is Australia. And yes, there is the Chairman's Lounge, and there's the Beyond Lounge for Virgin, and there's the pointy end of the plane, and sometimes it feels like it's small.
Yeah, well, it is.
And as a result, when you are being one step removed and being a commentator and being a writer and being in a position where you can't be persuaded, versus getting in and finding out what's going on, that must be quite difficult.
Yeah, well, there's a bit I can be persuaded. By the way, I can always be persuaded if you are persuasive. If you have an argument, but not if you're charming. Yeah. As in, if your argument is persuasive, not if you are persuasive. Yeah. That's what persuades me. But it's always interesting when we were coming up with the branding of Rampart and what it means and what it's going to be. We talked about this, and it's like, are you the person in the party? Are you this is the guy who I used to come up with the name Rampart. His name's Howard Fish, and he's an amazing guy in America, and he comes up with the names of startups. That's basically what he does.
Love it.
And he was saying to me, are you at the window, looking through the window of the bar on the street, looking in at the party and writing about what you see? And I said, no, okay. I am in the party.
Okay.
And I'm writing about the party.
Okay. You're Truman Capote.
Yeah, well, the Cote Basque was his social suicide note, right? He was an insider.
Yes.
Now, I'm not an insider per se. Like, I know a lot of the insiders. I talk to a lot of the insiders. Some of them talk to me because they like me, and most of them talk to me because they do it as a risk management strategy, and a lot of them just refuse to talk to me, and that's fine. I can handle all of that. Yeah. I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting thing. Like, am I inside? Am I outside? Well, what I am is really both. And in the end, what I'm there for is to get the truth to readers, not to make friends or to get ahead. That's sort of the principles. I'm human, so I make mistakes and I make misjudgments. But that's the principles.
Tell me, the Chairman's Lounge, the inside story of how Qantas sold us out. How many have you sold?
60,000.
60,000. Shit.
Yeah, that's audiobooks and ebooks as well.
Well, whatever. That's 60,000. That's serious, Joe. I mean,
we're pretty happy with it. For a business book as well. So.
That genuinely is exceptional, because I think I'm right in saying if you sell 10,000, you're in the best selling list.
Yeah.
Right. So that at 60,000, that in the Australian market, how does that make you? How do you rank then? Over a year's sales, 60,000, you must be right up there amongst the very most successful books.
I don't know. I'm not being falsely humble here. I actually don't know. I know that The only thing I heard was that the John Farnham book sold more than 100,000. So like that's really stratospheric. But so I wouldn't honestly know what my rankings were, to be honest. It was going very well. I was following that at the start,
Yes.
when it was in the first month or something,
Right.
but I haven't really looked recently.
And the other thing that writing a book does, of course, is it then gives you speaking opportunities. Does that happen as well?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
and
Yeah.
that's been. I did a lot of that for the first 6 months. I sort of died down now, which is good. I didn't want to do too many because it's. You feel sort of like you're boring the hell out of people.
Yourself?
Yeah, well, sort of. It's really open. It's interesting. When I was thinking about doing the book, Lee Sales said to me, I was consulting with people who I really respect in the media about whether I should write a book or not, because I'd quit the AFR and I honestly didn't know what to do, and I had this offer.
Right.
And I had a period of gardening leave where I couldn't work as a journalist and compete with the AFR. But what I did do is get book publishing carved out of that just in case. And I had this offer, and the Qantas story was just so big, and interestingly, Lee said to me, nobody stops me in the street and says, "I love that 7:30 Report interview you did with Hillary Clinton, or or Nelson Mandela, or whoever it might have been." It's always, "I loved your book." Yeah, and she said that is really what drives. Surprisingly, given not the readership. Not as many people as you'd expect actually read books. Thankfully, audiobooks have changed that. People who never used to read books now consume books by audiobook. But the point is, that's what most people identified with. And that was a piece of that I really discovered that to be true. Like I've reached people, an audience that I have never reached before, and I wrote every day on the back of the AFR for 12 years.
Yes, for sure.
And these people who would never have read a single column I've written have now contacted me and said, love this, and so that's important.
Well, congratulations on 60,000 words. Is there
Thank
another
you.
book in you?
Not anytime soon.
No, if a story like that comes along.
Exactly, and there's been one in more than 10 years. So yeah, not anytime soon.
It's quite interesting. Freddie and I have been talking about abundance. This new book, which is making.
Heard about it, haven't read it.
Okay, so maybe Freddie, tell Joe about abundance.
So written by Jeff Thompson and I want to say Ezra Klein
That's
over
correct.
in the US, and I suppose you'd say it's a manifesto for the new left, essentially begging the Democrats to stop talking about redistribution or reshaping the slices of the pie and growing the pie instead, which usually looks like the dissolution of special interest groups' ability to protest developments, deregulation, and it seems like it's starting to really make way here in Australia with the Productivity Commission. It's a word that's propping up again and again. So an interesting thing to keep an eye on in the Australian context.
So the reason why I asked that question, Joe, is there a political book in you?
Doubt it.
Manifesto book? Is there a...
Definitely not.
Definitely not?
I don't like writing about politics that much. And one of the things I found really uncomfortable about the Chairman's Lounge experience was when the book came out and everyone completely fixated on Albo's upgrades.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not naive. I leaned into that and I gave lots of interviews about it and talked about it happily because it was what people were asking me about and it was selling books. So why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
However, you write this whole book about how actually this one company captures the Howard government, the Morrison government, politicians on all sides, and everyone just turns it into a hit job on one person. Don't get me wrong, Albo deserved to be criticised, and I don't resolve from unveiling some of his pretty poor judgment around Qantas. But that sort of, you write about politics and immediately people are screaming at you, left or right, and I just find it a bit tedious. And the good thing about writing about business is, one, it actually has a huge impact on society that people don't necessarily appreciate, their retirement savings and so and so. But it's a vacant field, and there's not as many, you're not competing with as many journalists, and also the readers are rational. When they read it, they're looking at it rationally. They don't just suddenly, it's not a team sport. They don't just start yelling. So no, I don't really like writing about politics for that reason. I mean, I was of course accused of being a liberal stooge by Albo and others. And when this book came out, everyone forgets that 2 or 3 years earlier, I was absolutely smashing Josh Frydenberg over JobKeeper. I mean, anyone who's ever read any of my columns about Morrison government would not say that I'm a liberal stooge, but in terms of productivity and this manifesto, Jim Chalmers says, is citing it as some sort of inspiration. I am extremely cynical about that because Chalmers is not somebody who has ever behaved in a policy sense as a believer in growing the pie. He's a traditional redistributionist. He wants to soak the rich and give the money to the poor. Actually, he doesn't even want to soak he's not even good at soaking the rich. He wants to soak the upper middle class and give it to the poor. So, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you want to play this game?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so Freddie, I have got in front of me an illustrated brand Parthenon, right? So this is a little tool that you can use when thinking about brands. Right? So down the bottom there, so the base would be just simply the category within which you operate. So let's just say in the case of Qantas, you would just put airline, right? Then here, there's 4 columns there. It doesn't have to be 4, it could be 3, 5, whatever, but 4. The supporting factors, the key supports that I've got to get right to be in business, that I then need to communicate with regard to my brand. Here, at the top there, the ceiling, that's the personality. Yeah, so what personality do I need to express? And then the ceiling is ultimately the proposition. Right? So that one word, the daily habit of successful people, what was the proposition that came before the creative line, the daily habit of successful people? Making sense?
Yep. Right. So it's a lot all at once, but I'm trying to say it. Keep up with you.
Okay, so if we think about Qantas, or maybe an easy way to explain it is maybe Macca's, McDonald's, right?
Sure.
So the base, let's call it fast food.
I worked at Macca's. It was a great training.
Okay, so convenient food at the bottom there, fast food. So what would the columns be, given that you've worked there? What would be the key columns, you reckon?
Value.
100%, yep.
Speed.
Yep.
Tasty?
Yeah, quality maybe.
Yeah. I mean, quality is in the eye of the beholder.
yeah. Tasty, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm going to go cleanliness.
Yep,
Clean,
fair enough.
Clean, quality. What did you say?
Speed.
Speed, sorry, yes.
Geez, what
was
value?
it?
Value.
Value,
Yeah,
of course it was value. I've written it upside down and it
Yep.
looks like an A. Value. Right, okay. Personality, I don't know, let's just say, friendly. Yeah? Yeah,
Sure.
and at the top for everyone, right? So if you just have that as the proposition, you have that in front of you as a brand, it's actually quite hard to go wrong. Mm-hmm. And what you then do is you then make sure, okay, so how are we going to communicate value? How are we going to communicate cleanliness? How do we communicate, taste? Yeah. So it becomes a very, very, very simple model. Mm-hmm. So I thought it might be fun to do Qantas.
Sure.
Yeah, and Qantas at its best.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to park the cynicism.
Yeah. Qantas at its best.
Okay.
Right? So what is Qantas at its best? We're going to
It's
say
an airline.
it's in the airline business, right? So what are the 4 most important things about Qantas?
Safety.
Okay. So safety. Next one.
Premium.
Yep.
Well, certainly, you want to capture that sort of service element, like the
service. That's okay. Yep. Service.
Maybe that's the same as premium. I mean, it's not quite.
No.
And
Let's just call it on time.
yeah, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the practicality of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Making sure you're on time.
Yeah, and safety is the same, like making sure you're alive.
Exactly. Right. So then personality.
Well, Australian.
Okay. Let's just do that. And what would the proposition be?
This is the bit that I don't quite understand the meaning of.
So the offer. So I want you to fly Qantas because.
It's the best.
The best.
I mean, sorry, that's not.
Just for the exercise.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so then what is really interesting? So let's just say that is what Qantas is. If you're in charge of the Qantas brand, okay, I'm going to be really honest with myself now. I'm going to mark myself out of 5. So safety, how are they going?
For 5.
5. Okay. Premium.
Well, sorry, there's some morning science, but
yeah. Premium.
But, I think that's where they're back to 3, sort of thing.
Back to 3,
yeah.
right? Service.
I think the staff are pretty great.
Yeah.
I'd say they're back to 4, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then on time.
Well, that's back to 4.
Back to 4. I would agree. Australia. So personality. How are they going with their personality, expressing it? Right. I reckon 1 out of 5. Yeah. Maybe I'm just being a bit extreme. And
I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's all that stuff that works fundamentally, and then you think, but you still feel like, oh, it's just ick. Or,
yeah, right. And then if the proposition is fly with us because we're the best, how are they going?
yeah, well, this is where it gets complicated. Like, internationally, and you're going up to Europe, well, forget it. Right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's say not that well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But domestically,
Pretty good.
yeah, Yeah.
So what that does is that tells us, it actually gives us quite a few clues on how to communicate Qantas and what needs to be done, yeah, in terms of comms, brand, advertising, right? So it's a simple tool. So I thought it might be fun to do Rampart.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, have you got a pen?
No, I'll have to use yours.
Okay. So Rampart. So because I'm very keen to help you make Rampart a blinding success, right? Because it deserves to be. Why
Thank
not?
you.
Right? It's a modern media business. It's very tough in this market. It's extremely tough. What is it? The top 10 stocks in Australia now? What, 8 of the top 10 were the top 10 stocks in the year 1900?
In Australia?
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, the big four banks, BHP,
That's it.
Rio Tinto.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a hard market to
Yeah.
get in and really make a
But
change.
by the way, I'm happy not to quite make to
Top
the
10.
ASX 10. I mean, if I made it into the ASX 300, I'd be happy.
Well, it's a difficult conservative market.
Yes,
right?
no,
and to
definitely.
actually carve out a market for sustained success.
There aren't any media companies in the ASX 50 anymore, that's
No,
for sure.
That's right. So it's hard. Okay. So
Yeah.
what have you got on your base there?
Finance news publication.
Done. Okay.
That's
beautiful.
pretty practical.
Yeah. Okay. So and your key supports for Rampart?
Quality.
Definitely. Yes.
I mean, that's really the one we lean into. I don't know if there will be 4. I mean, quality's the biggest pillar of all.
Yeah. We'll do the personality then. What's the personality of Rampart? So why did you call it Rampart?
So Rampart was, think of the Rampart as, the big wall around around an ancient city.
Yes.
But you can also, if the army is on the move, they can have a rampart out in the battlefield around it. But
Yep.
it's sort of
did you
think of
like
it
it?
as defending the city.
So why is that right for you?
Because there's all these swindlers out there, and everyone's trying to rip off shareholders or lie to the public, whether they're public servants or or business people.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is to sort of counter that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Is to save the city from misinformation.
Okay, so that's your proposition, right?
Right.
So yeah, save the city from misinformation. So I love saving the city because that's making Rampart work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I sound like I think I'm Batman or something.
No, that's good, right? But actually having a persona around Batman. So
Yeah.
what personality's Batman got?
Well, he's sort of grumpy, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, there we go. So grumpy. Yeah, because it's good to be angry. It's really good to
Yeah.
be angry.
Yeah.
Gruen, the TV show that I'm on, is at its best when it's angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very angry about Qantas though.
Were we not?
I don't remember. I'm just being facetious. But your mate Todd.
Oh yeah. So, but I think that's good.
Am
right?
I angry? I mean, I'm not.
But
quite,
there's a cynicism. Is that important? I think
there is a I would say skeptical.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I
As opposed to
talk to
cynical.
Freddie all the time about this, right? So there's cynicism, skepticism.
Fearless,
Excellent. Yeah.
and that I really think that's an accurate
Yeah,
description.
I agree with you. Yeah. So what have we got?
So we've got quality, skepticism, skeptical, fearless,
Yeah.
and maybe discerning. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too high-minded.
So I'm having.
What do you think?
Well, there's one thing here which I reckon is important.
Oh, by the way, funny.
Great. But maybe that's in your personality.
That was going to be my one, guys. I think the sort of the key, one of the key propositions here for the audience is wit. It's like the most attractive thing as a reader. That's what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. So now one more input. So when I read a Rampart article, at the bottom you've got a beautiful orange box. Right? I like your orange as well. I think it's good.
Thank you.
It says mentioned in the article: Richard White, Mark Latham, Leslie Matthews, Zena Nassar, Andrew Harrison, Charlie Aiken, OnlyFans, WiseTech,
This is a really spicy one. This one.
Daily Telegraph, LinkedIn, Kimberly Svitash.
Yeah, that's one of Richard White's mistresses.
Oh, of course, yeah. Thank you. Forbes Australia, AC/DC, and Scientology.
that one has got the full gamut of weirdness in it.
So I think that orange box is, how would you describe that? Because
That's the fruit salad.
That's the fruit salad. So the reason Rear Window is very successful because you put in bold type
The names.
the names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's
So it's a name check type.
there's
or
something
like-
there's something in there which is very important. I think it's about it is about knowing, what is it? I think ultimately just people are fascinated by other people. Yeah. So I think that is an important part of what the Rampart brand
Well, it's
is.
psychology, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
So what would you call that?
I mean, human nature is so you said business is about people. I think business is about psychology. We're saying the same thing.
Right.
It's about human nature, the flawed way that people run businesses and behave in relation to each other. But I don't know what the tag for that is.
What is the tag for that? I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
But you got any thoughts on that one, Freddie?
Is it something about the idea here will be like what makes people tick on the outside and what makes people tick and nations move or categories move? Something, connecting those two.
Well, just put people, I think. Just write people, I reckon, in there. So, so what have we got?
We've got quality.
Yeah.
We've got skeptical.
Yeah.
We've got fearless.
Yeah.
We've got people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wit is your personality.
Yep.
And then your overriding proposition.
Is save the city from misinformation. It's
pretty good.
Or save the city from itself.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that's sort of quite interesting. And what we should do is we actually should turn that Parthenon into a Rampart, shouldn't we?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
if someone else said to me, is the Rampart because you stand at the top of the Rampart pouring boiling hot oil on people?
Which is possible. It's very good. Pricing. I think your pricing is also really interesting. So give us your pricing strategy. Because I've got to tell you, when I first looked at the pricing, I took a very deep intake of breath and rang up the corporates and said, is there a corporate deal?
Oh, really? And how'd you go there?
No.
Well, there's a corporate deal if you want a group subscription.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, come on. Tell me about your pricing.
So interestingly...
Don't be shy.
No, I won't be. And the truth of it is I licked my finger and stuck it in the air. Perfect. And I said, well, the AFR charges $620 plus GST per year, or it's a little bit more if you pay per month. So you get a discount to pay in advance. And interestingly, 70% of my subscribers pay for a year in advance, which is the opposite of most publications. They have the majority paying monthly as opposed to upfront. So
I think that's your readers supporting you.
Yeah, there's no doubt that's a part of it, big part of it. But I spoke to Ben's. I spoke to a few. I won't name them. I spoke to a bunch of different people. It wasn't just one person, but in New York, who have started their own, sort of similar businesses, and they said whatever you think you can charge, charge a bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Because you can always have a sale. If you put a price out there and no one signs up, you can always say, okay, it's sale time. What you can't do is say, oh shit, there's a rush of subscribers. I haven't charged enough, so you can't then go, okay, well we'll double the price. Okay, you cannot do that.
So you're doing well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing. The thing is, well, what is well? I don't know what to compare it to, but
you can compare it to what you earned when you were on the on the salary.
Yeah, well, I'm doing well then.
Well, that's great.
And I think I had an arbitrary number of paid subscribers that I wanted by the end of this year, and I'm going to be there well in advance. So that's fantastic. But again, you don't know when you hit the growth ceiling until you've hit the growth ceiling, right? It's going really well. Tomorrow it could just sputter out. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But yeah, look, it's a high price, but I don't resolve from that. Like I sort of said that from the outset. This is not for everyone.
Right.
This is the highest quality journalism in business, finance, and general, and the fringes of economics and politics that you can possibly get. Mm-hmm. And if you think that's too expensive, then maybe it's not for you. Okay. And so far, that's working.
There's the list of things I wanted to ask you about. Have we covered it all off?
I think we have. Yeah. Why so expensive? You're hurting on that one, aren't you?
No. I wanted you to explain. Yeah. Because in the end, you know the 4 Ps of marketing, don't you?
I don't, but please share them.
Well, the 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, promotion, price.
Yep.
The P that ultimately matters is price.
Yep.
Right? Because everything that you do leads up to: am I willing to pay $22,000 to fly on a Qantas business class seat from Melbourne to New York a couple of months after the pandemic ceased and we could get on a plane? Am I actually prepared to do that?
Yes.
Right? So price in the end is the critical component.
Yeah.
So
it's a hard one to hold. Like I've never had to be in charge of the price of my own journalism before.
Right.
So suddenly you have people saying, well, I'm not paying that. And you immediately go, oh, it's too expensive. I got to drop my pants. And what you got to realize is just because there are people who say, I won't pay that, does that mean that you shouldn't charge that? Because if I say, well, okay, I'm charging 600 plus GST.
Yeah.
Okay, there are people who won't pay. I'm going to charge 300 plus GST. And now I'll get I have to get twice as many subscribers in order to be exactly where I already am.
And I do really.
And would I get twice as many, or would I just actually have a whole bunch of people prepared to pay more who are getting it cheaper?
Well, the signal to the market in the end is price.
Yep.
Yeah, and that so I say good on you is really where I'm coming from on this. It says a lot, right? And so the price says it all, really. So if we go back to our Parthenon. If I do everything that's on there, does that equal the price that I'm demanding? Well, you think it does?
Yeah, well, I do, and though I have to deliver, I have to deliver. That's the thing. The pressure's on. Like if it becomes non-premium, if I just start, just writing, bashing out whatever thought comes to me without any deep analysis, then people will quickly go, well, I'm not resubscribing for this. And the other thing is, I will see when all those annual subscriptions come up and they have to resubscribe, and if 3/4 of them don't resubscribe, then I'll know that I've fallen off the churn cliff to my death.
I was just thinking about BRW. Many years ago, I worked when Neil Shoebridge was at BRW. And I had
I famously called him Conan the Librarian.
Yeah.
I say famously. Famously to me, about three people actually laughed at it.
I was just thinking about BR. So the line we had for BRW was the unfair advantage. So that was designed to be about the reader, to give them the advantage. So there is always something about information and the unfair advantage that it can give you.
I thought at the end of this brand Parthenon, Russell, you would be coming up with my amazing Rampart tagline.
That's what I was hoping to do.
And then all of a sudden, I'd have to give you a free subscription.
No, I was hoping to come up with something amazing. It just, Freddie, have you?
You'll be sitting there. You'll be sitting there looking out at the Aegean Sea, Freddie, and it's going to come to you. Yeah. I know it will.
Yeah, that's it. Come on, you've got
3 seconds.
Exactly.
Rampart news. I'm loving it.
No, I think we can do better than that.
I'm loving it.
Okay, so right, I'm going to call a halt to this whole thing because
we could go on for hours.
We could go on for hours, and I'll have a good think and see if I can think of something. Anyway, great to see you, Joe.
Thank you, Russell, with one L.
I really appreciate you coming in. Good to see you, Freddie, all the way from the other side of some other hemisphere.
Thanks, Freddie.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Freddie, Joe's left us now, and I've given us some homework. So the Parthenon, that was pretty good fun, wasn't it?
I thought that was great. And I really like how, it's taking shape, Russ. A guest comes here and we're not just extracting things. We're just giving away insight and wisdom they can take away with them.
Well, precisely. Right? So, as you know, I love a Parthenon. So what did he say? He said that, so on the business that he's in, finance news publication, yep, well, it's hard to dispute that. That's fair. Quality, yes. Skeptical, yes.
Yep, I'm happy
Fearless.
with that. That sort of that wit. I think it is in wit. I'd really like to push that sort of like quality. Maybe if I could split it up, if I were to rearrange, I'd go trust, insight, and wit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll take a photograph of this and I'll send it to you. You can have a bit of a think. Because wit, of course, because the personality of Rampart, I think, is also part of what we've got to get right. Nail that. And then the proposition that he wrote was save the city from misinformation, right? So, which of course is trying to make sense of Rampart. Well, is making sense of the brand Rampart, which is ultimately was my agenda. Was you need to explain to me why this is right, why Rampart is the right name. So what excited him when that was presented to him by a fella called Howard something, when that was presented to him, he was gone, that's it, bang, I love it. So I wanted him to explain why that tickled him and why he said, yeah, bang, we're going to do that. Now, and I've sort of promised him an end line. So we better have a think about that. Maybe next week.
We'll keep it cooking in the back of our heads, and I'll come up with
Yeah,
some
why
drafts for you over the next few days. Why not?
How are we going here? And with the advertising industry, just saying, Jesus, can you stop giving away ideas because they're supposed to have value? Oh dear. All right, fair enough. See ya.
Well done. Thanks, Russ.